Welcome to the American Roundtable on Tough TV, powered by MixingSexy.com. I'm Al Spry.
And I'm Will Strickler.
It is politics as unusual. We like to call it the Straight Talk Zone. Coming up this half hour, we're talking with a lady by the name of Keston Ott-Dahl. And it's a fabulous story about how love wins over fear. We'll also cover Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. They're neck and neck in Florida, Will.
Well, you know, the gloves are coming off, so let's see what happens as we move through the conventions.
Also, we'll talk about a restaurateur being brought up on charges for actually killing his customer with some bad Indian food.
So what was the story?
Well, we'll get to that.
All right,
this
great.
This is American Roundtable, right here on Tough TV, and we'll see you in just a few minutes. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. I'm Al Spry.
And I'm Will Strickler.
Well, it looks like an interesting scene in Florida, Will, as far as how this presidential race is shaping up. As you know, it looks like a sure thing for the Donald to become the Republican nominee. Your thoughts?
I don't know what the end game is here, because is he actually going to find somebody who's going to be his VP that can actually carry Florida? Because it's going to be toe-to-toe here.
I can tell you one thing. Marco Rubio is not going to be Donald Trump's VP. He made it very clear. And here's the quote. While Republican voters have chosen Donald Trump as the presumptive GOP nominee, my previously stated reservations about his campaign and concerns with many of his policies remain unchanged. He will be best served by a running mate and by surrogates who fully embrace his campaign. As such, I have never sought and will not seek and do not want to be considered for vice president. Instead, I will focus my attention on representing the people of Florida, retaining a conservative majority in the Senate, and electing principal conservatives across the country.
This just seems to be a lot of posturing with these guys. You still don't know what's going to happen.
I think Rubio generally comes across as a guy who's not very courageous. He likes to try to take the safe route. And I don't think he's been a very good senator, if you want to know the truth, because of that.
Mm-hmm.
He's unwilling to take chances and stand up for what he believes in. He's only doing this to try to salvage remaining capital in Florida so that he can make another run for something. But I don't think it's a very good idea.
No, well, you know, he's looking forward to 2020. Maybe he figures Hillary's going to win, and he's getting lined up to go with 2020.
Yeah, well, what's he going to do until then? He doesn't have a Senate seat anymore. He's going to go into private industry for a few years so people will forget about him, then he'll run again? Or is he going to try to run for the Senate and see what happens? He can't run right now. The Senate seats, maybe he can run again in a couple of years, but he might be forgotten by then, too.
Mm-hmm.
Marco Rubio, dumb decision. I think he should have stuck and gone with Trump. In politics, things change all the time. You have to be fleet of foot. If you're not fleet of foot, get out of the business. You have to be able to make changes and decisions based on the prevailing wind. And remember, Will, as my old friend Reagan Smith used to say, a day in politics is a lifetime. This is the American Roundtable on Tough TV, brought to you by our friends at MixingSexy.com. Wonderful social site you want to check out. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. Well, we have a fabulous guest with us. This is a heartwarming story that I think everyone should be aware of. We like to kind of do these stories from time to time. It's not all just politics. I'd probably end up shooting myself if it was. So we have Keston Ott-Dahl with us. She wrote a book with her partner Andrea called Saving Delaney, From Surrogacy to Family. And we have her on the line with us on American Roundtable. Hi, Keston.
Well, hi, how are you?
Oh, we are doing fine, and we really want to thank you for coming on the show. Why don't we just start off with your story, how you met your partner, and when you're deciding to become surrogate mothers, and we can go from there.
Sure, absolutely. My story, our story, my family story, is actually a really crazy one. I'm 50 years old and I'm done raising my kids, and I'm a lesbian and I'm out there and I sing in rock bands. It's kind of what I do. And I met this beautiful girl who told me that I was going to be her wife, and that was Andrea. And I told her she was too young and too crazy, but she had 2 young children, so I was starting all over, and I was really apprehensive about it. But it was really impossible to not fall in love with the 3. They were just amazing people. But I was definitely done raising my kids when we had met some friends at a birthday party, another lesbian couple, and they were telling us about how they had tried for 7 years to have a baby of their own, and their eggs were bad, and they had spent $250,000 trying to get pregnant. They were trying to adopt, and nobody was letting them adopt because they were a lesbian couple. And Andrea came to me and she told me, honey, I want to surrogate for them. I told her, no way, that's crazy. But she felt like she was doing something right in the world. And to be honest with you, she felt like she was righting a past wrong, which she didn't tell me about until much later. But I reluctantly agreed because, after all, this wasn't going to be our baby. But we were going to use Andrea's eggs to help these gals save some money, and that's how it all started. Life was definitely different after that.
Yeah. Well, how did it become different?
Well, here I am. I'm starting over raising these 2 kids, her young kids. They were 7 and 5 at the time, and when we decided to surrogate, we thought we're making a baby for our friends. It wasn't going to be our baby, and I told Andrea, you can't fall in love with this baby. I had no idea that I was going to become a parent to a newborn child myself, which is exactly what happened. The baby was diagnosed with Down syndrome prenatally, and the 2 intended moms requested that we terminate her. And I got to be honest, Al, it was a lot of it was at the doctor's advice. I mean, they made it seem like the baby was going to have 2 heads. She was going to have autism. She was probably going to be blind. She was never going to amount to anything and be able to learn. And this I was a person. I was an ableist. I was a perfectionist. I felt like there was no place in the world for people with these kind of disabilities, and I'm ashamed when I say that. But I saw in my partner, who we had gone through so much to make this baby, and I saw in Andrea just the anguish in her heart that she had when we found out the baby had Down syndrome. And I knew I had to educate myself. And we urged the intended moms to educate themselves, but they really just didn't have an inner mama bear. The diagnosis just scared them. And Andrea and I decided that we were going to save this baby and raise her ourselves. And we named her Delaney Sky, which means warrior from heaven. And she never let us down. She didn't have any of the things the doctor said other than Down syndrome.
So when you first heard this diagnosis from the doctor, were you for terminating the pregnancy at that point, and then Andrea changed?
Oh, we were urged to terminate by the doctor. When we first got the diagnosis, we all sat and looked at the baby on the monitor before the doctor came in, and it was a big, large screen monitor on the wall, and she was beautiful. She had a beautiful profile. She had a personality. She was spinning around, and then he came in and he said, "This is where parents terminate." And he said he volunteered to perform the termination himself 3 times. And I was just like, wait, stop, hold on, this is all going too fast. In the beginning, I felt like the pregnancy should be terminated before I educated myself. But just, looking at Andrea's anguish, and I had actually just lost my mother, and I just dealt with grief, and I'm dealing with grief, and I did not want to grieve this baby.
Well, let's talk more about the story in a moment. And I want to tell you that we have Keston Dahl. She's written a book with her partner, Andrea, called Saving Delaney, From Surrogacy to Family, right here on American Roundtable. Welcome back to the American Roundtable, right here on Tough TV. We have Keston Dahl. She's written a book with her partner, Andrea, called Saving Delaney, From Surrogacy to Family.
So, Keston, this is Will. What did the other couple? What were their feelings when they found out?
Well, we were all in shock because, like I said, we spent 7 months trying to get pregnant for them. A lot of emotional highs and lows. So this we were in celebration mode when the doctor came in. The four of us were honestly we were devastated and in shock. But with the doctor's urging of us terminating this pregnancy, they chose not to get an education beyond the doctor's, poor prognosis, which Andre and I, we did. We decided we were going to educate ourselves, and they decided they were not going to educate themselves. They were devastated. One of them had a nervous breakdown over it, and it was really an awful time for them. They ended up they came to us and they told us they wanted to terminate the baby, and they basically said it was their decision and their decision alone, and that we needed to butt out. And I told them, well, no, dear, it's actually not your decision at all. It's your decision if you want to keep the baby, but it's not your decision to terminate. This is a passion of ours, because surrogacy contracts say they have an unconscionable clause that say that the intended parents can choose to terminate the pregnancy. You can't. A woman who's going to enter in a contract like this, there's no way of knowing how she's going to feel when she's pregnant, and I think it's just an unconscionable clause, and it should be illegal to even have in contracts.
So how did you deal with that?
Well, they briefly threatened to sue us to try to force us to terminate the pregnancy. But we spoke to an attorney, and the attorney was telling us that no judge in the world would ever force a woman to terminate her own biological child, let alone any child. It was an unconscionable clause, and it should have never been in the contract. But it is in every contract, by the way.
Well, let's just bring up a little information. How does Down syndrome actually come about?
What happens is the children have 21 chromosomes rather than 20, so they get an extra chromosome, and it's just a freak thing of nature, and it happens to any woman at any age. It typically happens to women who are older because their eggs are older, but more younger women get pregnant than older women, so it is a common occurrence at women at any age, and basically it's a delay. But today, guys, huge advancements have been made in Down syndrome. Instead of terminating Delaney, Andrea and I discovered Cornell University had done a research on choline. And instead of terminating Delaney, we started taking brain supplements during her brain development, and it has paid off in spades. Delaney is on target developmentally with any typical baby without her disability because of the interventions that we have done.
Well, you were very conscientious to do that, and I think it's an excellent thing that you did. I think that you got to go with your heart in cases like this. How did it end up for the other couple?
We don't know. We don't talk to them. After they briefly threatened to sue us, we pretty much parted ways. And I know it's a painful thing for them. I can't imagine. I mean, we're out there in People magazine and in the news and Yahoo, all over the place, and I know they have had to see us. I have no idea how they feel about it now.
Well, what if they would have said, we want to have the child? Would you have given the child up to them, and then they could have had the family, obviously?
Of course. I mean, we signed a contract. We were doing this for our friends out of love for our friends. Mm-hmm. And we would have, if they would have said, oh, no problem, we'll take the Down syndromer, if they had educated themselves, had they proven to us that they had a mama bear for this sick baby, we would have let them be the moms, but they had no inner mama bear. They wanted a perfect child, and Delaney was not perfect in their eyes, even though she is very perfect.
Talking with Kesten Dahl, Saving Delaney is the name of the book, From Surrogacy to Family, right here on American Roundtable. And this is quite a story, and it's a hopeful story because it has a happy ending, and we have a healthy child, and we have loving parents, and heck, what more do you need? Well, a little bit more. We'll finish up with Kesten right after this on American Roundtable on Tough TV. Welcome back to the American Roundtable. So happy to have Kesten Dahl with us here on the American Roundtable. Will.
Sure is, and I notice every day more PSAs talking about children with disabilities and Down syndrome, and I believe life is all about love anyway, so it's nice to see that you and your partner are doing something to make the world a better place.
It's all about Delaney.
So tell us how life is with Delaney.
Delaney is like any typical 2.5-year-old. She's into mischief. She goes to preschool. Like I was saying, that Delaney is on target developmentally. A lot of kids with Down syndrome do not talk until they're 5. But because of early intervention and everything that we do, she's 2.5, and she's saying 5-word sentences. She talks all day long and sings and dances, and she has a heck of a personality.
Well, obviously there's different levels of Down syndrome. It sounds to me like Delaney is quite high functioning because of the intervention you took.
And every child with Down syndrome can achieve these goals with early intervention.
So that's the key then, early intervention.
It really is.
So you would say for anyone that has a pregnancy and comes up with this diagnosis that hope is not lost, in other words.
Thank you. That is so well put. That is exactly what we say. There is hope. There are things you can do, and this is the gifts these children bring into your lives are immense. And I wouldn't trade Delaney for the world. And if God came and said, "Let's take away her Down syndrome," I wouldn't even want to do that.
Well, there are no perfect kids. Every kid has challenges, whether Down syndrome or not. And, Will, I think that it sounds like we have a happy ending here.
Well, let me ask you, if you have a child and where's the best place to go to find what to do with an intervention? I mean, where did you get the information to do what you did?
Gosh, go online and do research. You can go on DelaneySky.com or SavingDelaney.com. We have a lot of advice for parents. If you want to see what it's like to raise a baby, every day we chronicle Delaney's life on Facebook, Delaney and you can see firsthand what we do every day to make her what she is. Research the internet. Go to your local Down syndrome societies and intervention. Every major metropolitan area has them. The National Down Syndrome Society, the Down Syndrome Congress. Immerse yourself with education before you just give up hope, because trust me, there is a lot of hope out there for these kids.
This is great words. Thank you so much, Keston Ott-Dahl. Thank you for your book. Thank you for your time, and we hope to have another chat with you as Delaney gets older.
Thank you so much.
Have a great day. That's, of course, Keston Ott-Dahl, and I'm Al Spry, Will Strickler. We'll be back with a few thoughts in just a moment. This is the American Roundtable. Thank you for joining us today, right here on Tough TV, powered by our friends at MixingSexy.com. Well, Clinton...
I'm Will Strickler.
Well, yeah, of course you are. I did say I was Al Spry, but I am Al Spry. And that is Will Strickler. Hillary made a little faux pas. She did a town hall a couple months ago, and she said the following, a quote, which she is regretting now, because she's running in West Virginia. "We're going to put a lot of coal miners and coal companies out of business." She was referring to the transition to clean energy. She probably should have just said, "Let's keep things clean," not talked about the coal companies and the coal miners that she's now campaigning to get their votes. They basically told her, here's a quote, "Bill and Hillary Clinton are simply not welcome in our town." This is Logan, West Virginia. "Mrs. Clinton's anti-coal messages are the last thing our suffering town needs at this point." So that's what happens when you try to make some certain points with one audience and you forget that you have to campaign with other audiences.
You can't offend people because it's always going to come back to bite you. It's like Cruz, he talks about the people in New York. Then he's got to go to New York. I mean, some politicians and some people are just not very smart, Al.
If you're going to talk about clean energy and putting coal companies out of business, do it after the West Virginia primary, not before the West Virginia primary.
After the primary, and make sure you have a backup plan. Well, you might lose your job in coal mining, but we got a high-tech job for you someplace else.
This is a European story, but I thought it'd be kind of interesting to end the show with. An Indian restaurant owner is accused of killing a customer with bad curry. It wasn't that it tasted bad or it was bad. It basically, he put peanuts in instead of almonds. The guy asked for no peanuts because guess what? He has a peanut allergy, which will kill him, and it did.
It's always something, Al. Always something.
This is Ruby Scott, suffered some allergy, fallen seriously ill. Same restaurant. But this was from the same guy, but she got saved. Then This poor guy named Mr. Wright ate his plate of curry, and
That was
and his
wrong.
roommate found him dead.
That was wrong, Al.
And it said no nuts written on the curry that allegedly Mr. Zaman had written, or one of his employees did. So now he's on trial. Trial lasts in a few more weeks. We'll let you know how it goes. But
He had a contract.
I got to tell you, just to save a few bucks, ended up with killing somebody. If someone says no nuts, don't put nuts in the food. How about that? And that way everybody can survive and eat a nice meal. All this guy wanted to do was enjoy his Indian curry. Now he'll never eat another meal again. Thanks a lot, Mr. Cheapskate. I'm Al Spry.
And I'm Will Strickland.
Thanks for joining us on American Roundtable on Tough TV. We'll see you next week.